So I had somebody ask, do you teach predictive shooting to your recruits? And if you do, how do you articulate it and explain it to them? So I thought that might make for an interesting video. So we do teach predictive shooting to our recruits. We actually introduce doubles or predictive shooting on their second day. We get into it relatively early before they've had a lot of time to form opinions on what shooting is or just how difficult it is. We get them into it really quickly because we want them to get on the learning curve and experience exactly what their grip and vision need to be able to withstand relatively early on so they understand where we're headed with the rest of the development. So the way I articulate and explain it to the recruits is the first thing I do is I gather them all around and I demo it for them first. I wish I could just show a video of me teaching it. Unfortunately, recording classes where I work, I don't think is going to fly. So I'll just have to talk about it and you will have to imagine along with me. So circle them all up and make some demonstrations. I shoot rapid pairs. Bop, 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 bop on a target. Usually there's a black focus spot on there, so my target looks just like theirs. And then I'll pop my ears off and I say, okay, here's what you guys are going to do. You're going to connect to the gun. So we're not assessing your grip or your draw. You're going to build a grip that you think is acceptable. I want that grip to be able to hold up and stay connected to the gun so the gun doesn't slide around in your hand. You're going to put your dot on the black focus spot and you're going to lock your vision on that black focus spot. And then you're going to fire a pair of rounds. The second round is going to be fired when you predict that your dot is going to be on the black square. You're not waiting for it to arrive. You're certainly not waiting for it to stop. You are pulling the trigger when you think it is going to be there. And then I remind them that for the entire first day of their training and for a quick refresher on the second day, we did one-shot return and trigger control at speed live. So they've got tons of experience of firing single rounds and feeling just how quickly the gun returns when their vision's locked on that spot. So with that feeling in mind, when you think the gun is going to be there, you're pulling the trigger a second time. And I tell them, I said, it's going to be more or less about as fast as you can pull the trigger. However, I don't want your focus to be on pulling the trigger as fast as you can. Your focus is like visually controlling when you pull the trigger. I make sure to stress that you're not waiting for the dot to be there, but you're pulling the trigger when you think it's going to be there. So the dot's going to enter your awareness, even if it's not back on the spot, and you're going to have to start pulling the trigger at that moment in order to be pulling the trigger when it's arrived on the black square. And that's where the predictive piece comes from. Based on training and experience, I'm pulling the trigger when I believe the gun will have returned back to zero where I'm looking. And then I explain to them that we're really not trying to fight the recoil of the gun. The whole idea is just to build a grip that stays connected to the gun and my vision stays connected to the target. And then I just try to stay out of the gun's way. My job is to pull the trigger, not make any additional inputs on the gun other than what is required to bring the gun back to the spot. And I tell them to not try to do that with any type of physicality. I want them to simply bring the gun back with their eyes, staring at that spot, and like they would a mouse pointer, I want the gun to return to that spot just under the power of their eyes, and they're pulling the trigger again when they think it's going to be there. And I really stress that because the tendency to want to try to control the recoil, like connecting to the gun, ends up being a situation where they want to fight the recoil. Of course, that's not productive. That leads to input on the gun. We start pushing down on it. So I really want them to understand the gun is going to recoil. We're just going to let it do what it does. And the instant we think it's going to be back on the black square, we're pulling the trigger again. And I have them fire sets of pairs. And then I explain to them why we do this. Obviously, this is not an engagement strategy. This is not how we would want to go out and conduct ourselves in a shooting where we have a single sight picture and we're pulling the trigger 2 times. We've already decided we're pulling the trigger 2 times the moment we bring our gun up and connect to the spot. That's not how we do this. The whole point is this is a high level stress test of our grip and our vision. An analogy I like to use, I stole from Matt Pranka, is if you want to learn how to drive a car, like 100 miles an hour successfully, then you've got to get out on the track and go 150. You're going to hit some cones. You're going to spin out. You're probably going to tag the wall a couple of times. But within those mistakes, you're going to learn a lot about how to drive that car very aggressively and very successfully. And then when it's time to back the speed down to about 100, suddenly driving around that car or whipping around that track at 100 miles an hour is not only doable, it is very easy, and it is underneath your performance cap. It doesn't take 100% of your effort and ability to maintain 100 miles an hour. You're able to do it with like 90%. So you've got some buffer in there. And I explained to them that we're doing the same thing with shooting. We are shooting at faster than real life speeds. We are shooting aspirational. We're shooting at the speed that we wish we could do, knowing that we're going to make some mistakes, and then we're going to fix those mistakes without slowing down. So later, when we actually slow the pace of our shooting down by instituting a visual reactive component to it, reactive shooting, it suddenly feels way, way easier. And so we introduce predictive shooting before we ever get to reactive shooting. I like to think of them as two sides of the same coin. We teach predictive shooting, we do it a little bit, and then immediately roll right into reactive shooting. So once I've gone through all of that explanation, we get them shooting immediately. I don't demo any mistakes for them or anything like that. I don't want to put any of those things in their mind. They've seen how it looks correctly. They understand what the pace is. They understand what the expectation is, and they have permission to fail. You will make mistakes. If you're drilling a nice tidy little group, we're going to come along with a sharp stick and poke you until you go faster so that you make mistakes, because the mistakes are where the learning comes from. And then we have them shoot around 50 rounds of doubles. It takes, it's a little more than 50 to go through 3 17, 18 round mags. We run them through all the mags. I do doubles on demand generally because it helps keep control a little bit. They don't run away and start shooting bill drills. And doubles on demand is nothing more than, hey, guns up, connected to the visually connected to the target, good grip on the gun. Dot is on the vision spot, on the beep, give me a pair. Beep, bang, bang. And then I let them relax, assess what happened. Okay, stand by. Beep, bang, bang. And I have them go pair by pair by pair to begin with. Because in my experience in the past, I have found if you tell them, I want you to shoot 3 sets of pairs or 4 sets of pairs, they start out with bang, 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 and it just turns into like a string or a bill drill. The learning is not happening. So we maintain control by running it off the beep. And it also allows a quick break for coaches to kind of over the shoulder, because we've got technicians walking up and down the line, working with their folks, coaching over the shoulder, gives them a minute to input some advice or draw their attention to a specific area or thing that they want them to focus on. But ultimately, we're looking at them to assess themselves and start making corrections on their own. And we're there to just kind of keep them between the lines is all we're trying to do. So once we've gone through the first set of magazines, we will have them go back and load up, jam their mags. Then what I will do is I'll clean my target while they do that, and then I will run another demo. This is the one where I make the mistakes. I'll look at my dot. I will make inputs on the gun, push rounds low, do all the mistakes. And then I'll ask them like, hey, do those mistakes look like stuff you see on your target? Of course, everybody's like, yeah, that's me. And then I'll go down the line and I'll pick out some specific targets that are very, very prototypical. They're like the common seatbelt we see out of a right-handed shooter, high right hits down to low left hits, like the shots that drift straight high when they're staring at the dot, all the normal things. And I'll talk about what's likely causing them, and I'll relate it to the mistakes I made. And then you can kind of see the light bulbs come on, like, oh yeah, I was doing some of that. And so we'll then go right back into it. I'll have them clean their targets. I guess I should talk about the targets that we use. That would make sense. So typically we use great big 2 foot by, I think they're like 3.5 feet long cardboard backers. They've got the photorealistic guy on it with the gun or the no shoot on the back. We have blank cardboard ones that we use for like general marksmanship work. And we will take 4 or 5 white 8.5 by 11s and spray glue them up so that our cardboard kind of looks like the number, and then we'll put black spots in the middle of the white paper. And it almost looks like if you rolled a 4 on a die. So you've got 4 different targets all on the same backer. And that just allows us to keep working without having to repaste all the time. Move to the top right target, move to the bottom left target. So once we've got clean targets, I'll have them shoot another round of doubles. Again, running them off the beep, a pair each time. And once one target gets really shot out, or we're not, there's too many shots to be getting any value out of it, we move to the next one. And we'll go through another 50 rounds. Once we finish with that, and the hope is there that they're starting to make the assessments, they're starting to make the connections to the mistakes. We generally see things are a little better. Some people make more mistakes, some people make different mistakes. That's all fine. Then I'll bring them back in once we've run through that. We will clean targets, have them jam mags, then I'll circle them back up, and I do what's called one-shot doubles. And this is simply a ball and dummy version of doubles. So I will show them how to do it. I'll okay, so what I do, put a mag in the gun, chamber around, take the mag out, put it back in my belt, and on the beep, I'm still firing 2 trigger pulls. I'm still pulling the trigger twice. Like I'm going to fire 2 rounds at the same pace I was shooting predictably earlier, but now I'm going to get a bang and a click. So I come up, I get bang, click, and I'm showing them, hey, I want you to be able to see what is happening when I get that second trigger pull, because that is the harder part of this drill. So now without the explosion, I can see what my dot's doing. I can see where it's at. Is it near the black spot when I pull the trigger, and was it stopping around that area as I'm pulling the trigger, or is it like slashing through as I bury the dot trying to shove the gun back down because I'm making input into the gun? Or did I notice that it went bang, click, and it never even returned because I got focused on the dot? So I give them several examples. I'll do some good ones, I'll do some bad ones, show them kind of the procedure of the drill, load the gun, chamber, take the mag out, put it away, shoot it, load the gun, chamber, put it away, shoot it. And then once we've kind of talked about the drill, it's maybe a 3 or 4 minute explanation. I get them back on the line and we immediately go right into it. And we'll shoot maybe a magazine or so, around 15 rounds, 17 rounds, something like that, of this one-shot doubles, and just allowing them to make the same mistakes they were making when they were shooting 2 live rounds. But now the second shot is a lot more, it allows the mistakes to be a lot more visible. So we'll run through that, and then we might do that on the top left white piece of paper with a focus spot. Then we'll immediately move to the top right piece of paper that's clean. I'll have them load the gun back up with the second full mag, chamber it, and now we're going right back into doubles. Immediately back into doubles. Off the beep, bang, 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 off the beep. Still just one pair off of each beep, but we just start rolling through doubles without a lot of downtime because I want them to take the feedback and the lessons they just learned while it's really fresh from the one-shot doubles, where they were seeing the mistakes on the dry fire rep, and immediately tie it into back into doubles with the predictive shooting. And almost without exception, it gets better. It's not perfect. We still see mistakes, but the light bulb moments, people are like, oh, now I feel where I'm pushing on the gun, and I don't have to do that. Like, I just look where I want the gun to go. I let my eyes bring it back, and I just pull the trigger. And they also really start to learn just what their grip needs to be able to withstand in order to not have to readjust their grip or have the gun slide around in their hand while they're doing this. And we see a lot of learning occur between the one-shot doubles and going right back into regular doubles. Once we've run through the rest of the magazine loadout on the belts for that, we'll have them reload, and then we'll just continue to shoot doubles for another set of magazines or 2, and we will move them back and forward. Like, we'll move them 3, 5, 7. If the class is really working well, we'll move them all the way back to 10 yards and let them shoot doubles at 10, and just really working that predictive piece. We'll also spend a little bit of time doing it with irons, not a lot, but a little bit, just so they can kind of understand what shooting predictively under irons feels like. And then when we go back to dots, they're really able to pull out all of the information that the dot is giving them, by comparison with the irons, where the information is a lot harder to pull out. So that's kind of how we teach predictive shooting. That's the progression that we go through, the why we do it that way. In the past, I had told them a few of the things that we don't do anymore. In the past, I had told them, like, hey, I want you to pull the trigger twice, about as fast as you can. And what I found when I instructed it that way was the focus really became on, am I pulling the trigger as fast as I physically can? And then when you ask them what they saw, it was almost like, I don't know. Like, it was almost like it didn't occur to them to pay attention to the target or what the dot's doing. Like all of the mental energy was right here. And is this going as fast as I physically can? And so they're kind of missing the point. So by telling them to pull the trigger when they predict it's going to be there, it puts the focus out on the target, because now they're focused on the target and they're aware of what the dot's doing. And are the splits a little slower? Yeah, maybe a little, but the learning is a lot faster. Like their ability to pull out the lessons, make the connections cause and effects wise goes way, way up. And again, these are not experienced shooters, most of them. These are folks that are literally on their 10th or 11th hour of firearms instruction and live fire instruction. So they're still very, very new at this. And so for them to be able to perform predictive shooting, comprehend what they're supposed to get out of it, process what's happening after each trigger pull, and assess what like the mistakes they made. If they're getting any of those things done, that's pretty great. And and if they're getting multiples of those things done, that's fantastic. So I worry less about how quickly they're actually splitting the gun, within reason. If they fall into a clearly reactive pace where they're like the dot is coming down and stopping or almost stopping before they pull the trigger, we prod them to go a little quicker because we want them to get the lessons. But I don't really worry, are they splitting 18s or are they splitting 16s? Like, I don't care. As long as it is relatively quickly and more or less about as fast as they can pull the trigger, and they seem to be doing it on a predictive pace, that's good enough for what we're looking for, at least initially. Because this won't be the only time they shoot doubles. We do it several times throughout the program. We revisit it, and we notice it gets better and faster the longer and more time they've had training. Sometimes we will do this on white paper with black squares. Sometimes, especially if we've got a student or a group that's really struggling with the idea of the input, we'll throw the bucket targets up. I've talked about that in another video with the 3 lines on it, and that just gives them an additional reference on where they're, whether or not they're really giving input into the gun. But yeah, that's how we teach it and the why. And then once we go through predictive shooting, we'll spend an hour, hour and a half on predictive shooting immediately, like within the same day. So still on day 2, like this is predictive shooting, and we roll it right into reactive shooting as kind of a comparative piece. And we see reactive shooting tends to go really, really well very quickly because we did the hard stuff first. We did the 150 miles an hour on the track. And now it's like, hey, all you need to do is go 100. And they tend to pick it up really quickly. They picked up on the mistakes. They correct the mistakes. They make improvements for the most part. We're talking about class averages, right? There's always standouts. There's always people who struggle. But the middle average, the mean, like they tend to do pretty well with this. And they pick up on the reactive shooting very, very quickly. And it goes well. So anyway, that's predictive shooting. That's the way we introduce it and the whys. If you got any questions, throw them down below. And if you want to like, share, subscribe, or I don't know, whatever YouTube's says I'm supposed to say, go for it. And if you don't, that's okay. It is okay with me. Take care, everybody.